I'm Ryan Funk with Multicultural. Together We Can is a series where we connect with healthcare workers and professionals to hear about their experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic. Today with me is Willson. Thank you for joining us today, Willson.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So how about we just quickly start with who you are and a little bit just about yourself.
Community pharmacist, been working retail business, which is non-hospital, for 25 years. Got my PIN this year, so make it official. I actually know what I'm doing. I think heavily involved in the Portuguese community too, almost since birth. So a lot of people often use it as a resource for various things, questions, products. I like to be involved or so, and being retail pharmacist, definitely involved during the pandemic.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it's great to have the perspectives of different people in different areas to find out what was it like for people. So I guess that's the question. When the pandemic hit, how did your work change?
I can't say that only mine changed. I'm sure a lot of people's got turned upside down. We're on the forefront, so medical questions came up right away. Treatments, people want to know, the very basic personal protective equipment, PPE, became a hot commodity really early on, which we lacked as well. So it was a concern for us, and that we couldn't provide it, and we couldn't get our own, right? So it just had this novel end of the world virus sprung upon the world. So we were having to adapt very quickly. Things changed very quickly in pharmacy as a result of toilet paper hoarding, that phenomena happened in pharmacy as well, medications. Everyone had the same idea. Let's stock up just in case we run out. And within a few weeks, drug shortages are happening all over the place. So
the same thing with hand sanitizers and everything. I remember going through there, it's okay, I'll just get one bottle, and then shelves just empty. And it felt very weird at the time, it's a crisis situation, but shouldn't we all be working together, coordinate a little bit? But, I guess people didn't really know what was going on. So, of course, they panic during those situations.
Yeah, panic ensued, right? We all saw the pictures from Costco. People fighting over that 12 jumbo pack, the last 12 jumbo pack of toilet paper.
Yeah, the people fighting over them, which is unfortunate, but, these things happen. You can't predict an event like that.
So the ripple effect from us, the same mentality, let's talk about medications. Within about a month, we were seeing significant shortages of medications. The government had to step in, saying no one's allowed more than a 30-day supply of anything at any time anymore. Upset a lot of people, that come in more, which they didn't want to come in anyways, which again exposed us more to this virus. We didn't know how bad it was, right? Why do we want to see people more often, right? Then we're getting that backlash, and we're having to see more people. So it was quite chaotic.
Yeah, pharmacies were kind of like a safety net during this period of time. People probably had tons of questions they were asking you all the time.
Aside from being busier from filling more prescriptions more often, also having to take time to answer the questions and source out any information. What's the latest on the COVID? Where are we with the vaccine? Any treatment? Have you heard of ivermectin? These things. Let me research that for you. And then you get lost in down a rabbit hole if you start researching too much. So you're trying to have quick answers and still trying to do the research on your own, so you know what's real and what isn't. So it was quite chaotic there in the beginning. Yeah, for sure.
And I guess just what was that sort of shift once the vaccine came out? Did you feel like there was a moment of we can take a short little breath, maybe there's an end to this thing?
That was already wave 2, right? If I remember correctly, we had a break there in the summer and fall there, 2020, and then it picked up again by Christmas, and everybody had to miss Christmas because of it. So New Year 21 brought new hope with the vaccine. So it was just a matter of keeping on top of what the studies are saying about which maker's version is better, which manufacturer's version, if there's one that's better. It was an evolving science, and it still is, right? So trying to keep up on that. But at least it did feel like, okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel, or so we all hoped, right? With that first one, oh no, it's the second one, oh no, it's the third one.
Yeah, get a little bit of whiplash.
We had to follow that, but no one knew it was going to be a series of vaccines as opposed to just one. But it was learn as you go. But at least at that time, there was a bit more confidence in the system. A lot of naysayers. How can you develop a vaccine so fast? There's drug companies trying to kill us, trying to profit. Trying to wade through all that. And to look at the bigger picture of things is this does seem to be the way to go. Is a vaccine at the end of it. Has it been tested fully? No. But they did the best they could, right? And it was done this is what I remind people, it was done with a global effort, right? So the scientific community, if everyone's working on the same project and they're all sharing their info into a database, as opposed to waiting until the paper gets published, peer reviewed, analyzed, and the next guy publishes his next year, it takes forever to do. Whereas everyone doing the research internationally at the same time, the scientific knowledge grows quite a bit faster than other drugs or so, where it's one company trying to hoard that information. So why did it come out so fast? I think collaboration was part of the reason. Yeah, they did rush it a bit to market, and the drug companies did say, can't sue us after. Not everyone liked hearing that, but everyone's urging us for a vaccine. We got something in the works here. Can't fully test it, but it looks pretty good. It looks pretty safe. I think we have to take a chance here. And the world agreed. We have to take a chance. We can't be locked up forever.
Forever. Like, imagine just waiting a whole other year before the vaccine even came out. Like,
you had to wait 3 years in lockdown status versus 2 or 1.5. A lot of people couldn't have handled that. We're starting to see now the effects of isolation, the social detriment that caused, students tremendously, all adults suffered. I think very few came out ahead of this, other than those who are already socially awkward and didn't want to see anybody as it was.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends who are like that. They're like, oh, thank goodness we don't have to go meet anyone or talk with anyone in person. But those are rarities, of course. So coming back to being that safety net, like pharmacies, people trust their pharmacists. They want to get information. They want to learn about the different medications and things. When they're asking all these questions and things in terms of COVID, did it feel overwhelming at times? Did you feel that there was direction from the government? Were you given ample resources to help out during that period?
No, definitely not. The vaccine rollout especially, we were always behind. The usual pattern was the government make an announcement, everyone today 20 and up can get it. Did I get a vaccine ahead of time? Like, we were allowed to order at that time, but we didn't know when these announcements would come. They literally would come out of the blue, and almost always at the end of the week, which their ordering process had us make the orders in at the beginning of the week, so we were always a week or two behind. So there's always some scrambling there before we had enough supply to meet that demand. Because as soon as the government was announcing, after 60 you can get it, after 40 you can get it, huge demand from those concerned populations, right? So we were never prepared. But I blame that on the government officials who could have risk a leak, or at least given us a notice. Order now. There's going to be an announcement next week. I know they're dealing with changing information as well, but sometimes they would have a week notice, and it would have made a difference for us, a big difference. Back to your statement about being the safety net for the health, for the health of the community, and somewhat in many ways is true. Whether we're providing product or knowledge or just reassurance and socializing, As an aside, for years I've always told my employees, sometimes people just need to talk about whatever, and that alone is therapy. Some people say we push medication too much. I push socializing as well, and I see for some of my clients it's super important, right? So that we had that role to fill as well. A little comforting, a little talk about whatever sports happen to be still on. They
might be uncertain about the medications that they're taking. Their doctor might have just been like, all right, here you go, you're going to need this, and this, and pharmacists can be that kind of like little buffer to be like, oh, let me walk you through this a little bit. This is what it means.
It's always been. It definitely reinforced that role of ours, right? Then you factor in some doctors weren't working or working from home or working as much or sick with COVID themselves, made them even less accessible. And no one could go visit a doctor, walk in or wait in the office because everything had to be even more by appointment. So who's left? The pharmacist, right? So we were around for that part as well. So, we wore all the hats, sometimes all at the same time.
All at the same time, yeah. So when you're talking before about, there was a challenge in the beginning with access to PPE, and I mean, you're very community-minded and community-focused. I guess for yourself, what was that kind of toll during that period of time when you're looking at your workers, you're not sure whether or not they're going to be protected or not, if they don't have the equipment? I guess just what was that experience going through being like, just you never know what's going to happen, and you're always just almost feels like playing catch up at times.
Yeah, good words. It was just it was an added stress, particularly in the beginning, when answering the questions and not being able to protect ourselves. And then you go home and you're playing with your kids or your family or whatever, and you're like, am I infecting you right now? Like having that doubt, I've never had that before. I've never carried my work home the dangers of my work home literally like that. But all of a sudden we were, especially until we had enough PPE to go around. It was definitely a level of worry that I had never had before in pharmacy. So it was a bit much. Once the PPE rolled out and we had a system at work for disinfecting and changing masks and gloves or whatever we were using, then you develop. Well, as humans, we adapt, right? So we adapt to new normal. New normal is walk anywhere now. Before it was like sanitize, wear the mask. Now new normal is back then. Hand pump or
hand pump.
Maybe have some adaptation you made, or at least look for a sanitizer bottle if you can find one. But we do adapt. As humans, we adapt to whatever crappy situation is or difficult situation. So after a while, it becomes normal. So,
Were there any challenges that you faced with interactions with the public? Maybe negative experiences or things like that?
Initially, when the government limited the supply of medications, we could only dispense, a month at a time. Some accusations came out right away. Oh, you're profiting off of us. You're dispensing 3 times. You're getting 3 professional fees instead of 1. You greedy pharmacists at this time. Like,
Come on.
I didn't make the rules, and I'm not the medication hoarder. Talk to the 100 people who came before you who left with their 3 months or 6 months of supplies. Get mad at them. Don't get mad at me.
Yeah.
And again, they couldn't just ramp up production around the world from the pharmaceutical companies because they're lacking workers as well because everyone's sick or away with COVID. So it was quite the supply chain issue, and we were at the forefront of it. We bore the brunt of it by some people, for sure.
So the flip side of that, maybe what were some of the positive things that you heard from people? Maybe you had some positive interactions, people being like, hey, thank you for being there for me and the community.
Particularly when the vaccine came out, that's probably where we had the biggest impact, I think. And until then was answering the questions, have you heard that this works? Have you heard of ivermectin? Can I use hydroxychloroquine? Or this, I read this on the internet, this recipe cures it. Trying to go through some of those, questions, those assurances, It showed how people still trusted us, with those answers as best as we could, right? But when the vaccine came out, then I think that's what people realized how accessible we are. Like some people still used to go to the doctor for flu shots or no shots because they don't do shots, right? But when they did consider getting a COVID shot, it's like, well, do you want to wait at the convention center with 3,000 other people? Or do you want to go to the corner store, which I'm there, and you got to wait maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that. So it definitely brought our accessibility to the forefront. I definitely had gained some clients because of it. Just realized that, wow, we are that accessible. And many were already happy that we're doing flu shots. We've been doing that for a few years. So adding the COVID shot is a big relief for people who didn't want to wait at convention center particularly.
So what sort of conversations have you been having with other pharmacists, your colleagues within the field, about the situation? What are some things that maybe, these are the priorities that should take place, God forbid something like this would happen again?
As in, so going forward?
Yeah, kind of going forward, but just what were some of the conversations that you were having with your colleagues at the time?
Truthfully, we all became antisocial. No one, I'll say, I was amongst the many, Netflix that night and tried to do my own research and go from there. There wasn't actually a lot of banter between my colleagues and I. The ones I work with directly, we would talk about, did you hear this? Did you hear that? But we kind of socialized less, unfortunately, like everybody else.
Like everyone else, yeah. The challenges of everything, when we need to, be in cooperation the most is unfortunately when we were pulled apart at times.
Yeah, you whittle things down to what's the most basic. Basic is my sanity, right? So the work is just crazy and I can handle all these questions, all these requests. I need downtime. So, I'll speak for myself. I wasn't always looking to talk to other pharmacists about what they were doing or they were handling, unless it was a difficult situation that I needed to reach out to someone. For the most part, I was just regain my sanity, forget about work in a minute, forget about the number of cases, and this is where I'm critical of the media, the mainstream media, for exaggerating every case it was. For real, it seemed like for a while that we knew every detail of every person, whoever had COVID and where they were and what they ate and what they drank. It was enough. It just drives you crazy. Nowadays, I think there's a lack of media attention on this, but there should be a bit more. But I think that is also the advent of CNN TV, right? News on all the time, just so easy to watch. You get obsessed with that, which increases the hype and the stress. So if I didn't have to think about it for a few hours at night, I wouldn't. So not as much collaboration as maybe there should have been.
And in terms of the reaction and the actions from government, what do you think some things that were good in terms of their cooperation with pharmacists? What were some things that, some hurdles? What are some things that you were like, okay, that was good. And from this whole situation, what do you think we can learn moving forward?
So good, bad, and going forward. So good was having the vaccines in the community, right? Instead of just the concentrated super centers. That did help alleviate some of the caseloads, but a lot of people were not comfortable going there. So having it accessible in the pharmacy, I was hesitant at first too, because I didn't want more and more people coming in.
Yes.
And I got to breathe their breath, because they were still very cautious about the social distancing. Now I got to be in a room with you for 5 minutes or what have you. So there was that apprehension. But you realize quickly that it was definitely a needed service, So having the government distribute that to all the pharmacies or wherever wanted to participate definitely helped speed things along and overcome some of those fears on our part and on customers' part. So that was good instead of just concentrating in the super sites. The bad, like I said, some of the communication was lacking. We all know media leaks are horrible these days, and one person knows something, they'll put on the internet, the world knows, and I guess everyone's got to be cautious about that. But the government definitely was trying to be cautious about that, but maybe too cautious. Let some of the groups in on it. Trust us with some things. Say, don't tell the mass media, please. You'll get a shipment next week or whatever. We have to order extra because there's going to be an announcement next week or in a few days. Sometimes the difference of a few days would save us 2 weeks of agony of not having enough supply for the concerned patients, right? So going forward, with the next pandemic, if we're around for that,
let's hope that.
Let's hope we're not around for that one. I think that communication within the governments and within scientific organizations, our health protection branch, the CDC in Atlanta, our federal lab here, it showed that when they do want to work together and share information, they can. And I think it's what helped, like I said earlier, the information scientifically, get shared better and quicker than it was. So I think that is a positive going forward. And I'm sure now they won't shut down any of these centers. They may invest more money in these centers to be more vigilant, because there were some rumors that this could have been caught months sooner, but the U.S. had closed one of their sites international that was monitoring these things, and due to cutbacks or whatever, they felt they had shut it down. True or not, I don't know, but I think they'll be thinking twice about doing that. Going forward, I think all countries will be a little more vigilant on this. So hopefully they get a jump on it sooner and better prepared next time. We all say that.
We all say that. Let's hope. Well, we'll see what cycle of politicians we get moving forward. But thank you so much, Willson, for taking the time. Your perspective is very needed when we're looking at going through things, because a lot of people, they're not thinking about their pharmacists. Like, what did they go through? What was their experience like? So it's great to have you sit down and talk with us.
Thanks for letting me share, our world. What was behind the plexiglass there for, once we had plexiglass, initially there was no plexiglass. It was just our regular counter. So, which was not the most comfortable thing. But yeah, our view was unique, but the drug shortages especially. So yeah, thanks for asking me. Thanks for having me. I thought it was great to share that. So hopefully my compatriots feel the same way in the majority, but I'm sure some disagree with me on everything I've just said, but that is also life. Everyone's got their own opinion, but that's how I saw it from my lens.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan.
My name is Ryan Funk with Multicultural, and this was Together We Can. Thank you for watching.